What you're about to see is a piece of content that used to be exclusive to my membership site. I hope you enjoy. All right, folks, so this is the business model that I'm going to be using to build my fiction business. If, as you see me explain it, you might find it to be a little bit familiar because this is the same business model that I'm using for the Nerdy Novelist. Now, I'm going to briefly explain what things you see here, but don't worry if this seems overcomplicated because a lot of this I'm not even going to be doing and haven't even started for the Nerdy Novelist yet. But I just want to give you an overview of what this is. This business model is called the Lynchpin, and it was basically coined as the Lynchpin by Russell Brunson. And this particular layout that you see here is very similar to a lot of other business models that have existed for decades, but this one's just sort of been highly optimized for the modern day by Russell Brunson and his team. And so this is something that works and works really well. The core of this business model is the continuity and the subscription. Continuity, subscription, they being the same thing. I'll be using them interchangeably. And the idea here is that you have three levels of this: level 1, level 2, and level 3. You can have more, but it's at least these three. And actually, you don't even need 3. You can have 1, you can have 2, etc. You only start with 1, right? And so this is a subscription that you want your people to have. Now, I'm going to be, as I document my process setting up this fiction business, I don't necessarily recommend this for everybody, okay? Having a continuity is very different from what most people recommend in the indie author space. Indie authors just don't have continuities. Maybe they'll have a Patreon, but that's really more charity money. And we don't want charity money. We want an actual subscription where we are providing value to a specific type of person. And so that's what the continuity is. Over here, we have this thing called the MIFGI, which stands for Most Incredible Free Gift Ever. And this is just basically it's bait to encourage people to sign up for the continuity. And this is, again, maybe familiar to those of you in the Nerdy Novelist and the Story Hacker membership, because this is what I'm using right now with my free book, 10,000 Words an Hour, as well as a couple of other goodies to get people interested in at least checking out the membership, right? You don't really have to worry about this stuff up here. This isn't stuff I'm getting into anytime soon, so don't even worry about it. But over here is this thing called the Attractive Character Flywheel, which is a fancy name for basically all of the different ways that you're getting traffic to this MIFGI and hence customers to your continuity. And it can take any kinds of forms. This can be ads. This can be social media. And in the case of the Nerdy Novelist, it's this YouTube channel, my YouTube channel. That is what people mostly use to discover me. I also am pretty good at doing SEO articles and getting people to come in organically through that. And that's something I've done a little bit of for the Nerdy Novelist, but not so much. It's something I'm going to be doing a lot more for my own fiction business. But the majority of people will probably come from ads, if I'm being honest. And that's going to be one of the biggest hurdles, is getting my ads to break even or become profitable so that I'm not wasting money on advertisements to walk people through this process. So this is the Lynchpin, and I'm going to show you my mapped out business plan, which follows the Lynchpin more or less and a little more tailored to me. I'm going to, again, don't worry too much if all of this seems a little overwhelming. I'm just going to walk you through all of it. I created this flowchart with my full business plan for this whole project. Now, any or all of this may change. I'm currently in a very pricey, very elite coaching program right now, which I am going to be basically walking through every single step you see here and getting their feedback and getting other people's feedback and really seeing how it goes. But for starters, this is what I've mapped out and what I think I'm going to be doing. So we start over here. This is what in the Lynchpin is the Attractive Character Flywheel. That's what all of this here on the far left is. You'll see I've got a couple of things here. I've got All Timelines, MythBank, and Pulp U, or Pulp University. These are websites that I've set up that I have determined are somewhat relevant to my fiction. All Timelines is the very first successful website I ever created, actually, which is basically a place to find reading orders for various books and viewing orders for things like the Marvel Cinematic Universe or the Star Wars canon. It's basically, chronological orders of lots of different things. And it was a fun little side project that ended up doing rather well. I haven't done a lot of work in it in a while, but that's something I could resurrect. And I've got like some notes here on what it is. It's a list of timelines primarily. I do have a document I was kind of putting together at some point that I call the timeline of everything, which is like, what if all fictional universes actually were the same universe? And I was having fun putting that together. And I think that would make a good opt-in for people to join my email newsletter. So I just wrote that down here. MythBank is, I think, the most relevant of the 3 websites that I have here to my fiction. Because I write mythology-related articles, I created this website, MythBank, to basically be a place to put all of my articles about mythology here, which would directly relate to my mythology-related fiction. And so I just jotted down some things that I could include from this website, including my mythology articles, of course, but then also public domain books of the different mythologies out there. I could put out collections of my mythology articles into mythology info books and do stuff like that. And these are all different ways that I could get traffic, right? And then Pulp University is related to some of my fiction. I've got my vampire Dracula sequel that I'm currently writing with Van Helsing and Sherlock Holmes. That would be more related to this than anything else. It's still inside my same universe, but I also have this website. This website is probably my poorest performing because it's the newest, but I'd have some pulp fiction related articles. I've published some public domain books of pulp reprints that have done okay. And so really stepping this up, I think, could be another source of revenue for a specific subsection of my fiction. It could be interesting. And then, of course, we have Facebook ads. And Facebook ads is the other thing besides MythBank that I'm going to be focusing a lot to start, is because Facebook ads are, though I want to get it so that this whole front end funnel that we got here breaks even. So that if I spend $1 to acquire a lead, I want to make sure that I'm making at least $1 on average per person so that I break even on this funnel. So all of these are basically forms of traffic. And there are so many other ways you could have traffic. You could do social media. I could do more YouTube channels like this one. But because SEO is really my area of expertise, I'm focusing mostly on that. I may start another YouTube channel at some point, but because those take a lot of work, I'm probably not going to for a while at least, and instead focus on ads and mostly MythBank to start, because those are the most relevant and most effective. Also, MythBank is my highest performing website right now. I get about 800 page views a day, as opposed to All Timelines, which gets about 400, and Pulp University, which gets like 20. So not even that much. So all of these lead into an opt-in. And right now, what I have an idea for the opt-in is it's just going to be the first book in my series of either of my 2 active series right now. I've got 2 that are mostly complete or fully complete. I've got Out of Shadows, the first of my Roots of Creation series, and Path of the Dragon, which is the first in my Fairy Queen series. So the idea is I put the first book of that series just for free, and maybe even more than that. Maybe I add in one of my short stories that I've previously used as opt-ins, add it for free. But they have to give me my email address, their email address. So they put in their email address, they get my free book, and then what happens is one of 2 things. At first they will immediately be directed to an upsell, which will have the rest of the series, and it'll be probably $20 or $30 to buy the rest of the series. And so, yeah, they'll have the option to buy the entire series. It will include the ebook and the audiobook, I've decided. I really want to give as much value. If you saw my video before about creating an offer, this is essentially what I'm doing here. So they'll get the ebook, they'll get the audiobook. This could include other add-ons, including I can add a coloring book that they could print out, concept art, maybe a video of me, or some kind of documentary about the subject matter. Which I could create, which would essentially be like a really fancy YouTube video that I could create specifically for this. I could create public domain versions of the same stuff that my books are based on, because my books, being based on mythology, have sources. And so I could find out what those sources are, create it like a fancy, well-formatted version with maybe some artwork in there that I could include here, and then bundle that up, sell it for, I don't know, $30 or so, really play it up on how much value I'm adding in there. And then that will lead them to a thank you page once they have completed that. Now, if they don't do that, and potentially even if they do, once they've entered in their email on the opt-in setting here, they come to an email sequence, which I'll have a sequence of emails that I'll send them immediately after they join, which will basically be encouraging them to move on to this, which is my Mifki, or my most incredible free gift ever. And the thank you page, if they went and bought the upsell, will also direct them to this as well. It'll basically say thank you, and here, also check out this other thing. But the email sequence will be designed over a couple of days to move people here to the Mifki. And then after that, they will be just entered into a basic weekly newsletter that I will send out, which will have things like a story Bible entry, maybe a link to one of the news articles, or the articles that I'm writing over here on MythBank, maybe some personal news, some book news, a book recommendation. All of those things are things I could have in my weekly newsletter. But really what we're doing is we're coming over here to the Mifki. Okay, now the Mifki, what I've decided so far is I'm going to have at least 5, maybe 6 books that are the first books in each era of my world. Everything that I write is in the same universe, but a lot of it's very different from each other. Most of it is based on mythology in some way, or world literature that's in the public domain, like my Dracula book that I'm writing right now. And I've decided I'm going to have at least 5 books introducing that. 2 I've already mentioned, Out of Shadow and Path of the Dragon, which will be opt-ins, but they'll have the option to get that plus 4 or 5 others as part of the Mifki. Now, some of these I haven't written yet, so I will still have to do that before I can really move on. But I might still be able to offer it with 3 books or 4 books to those just starting out. We'll just see how that goes. My 5 eras are, I've got a world called Illidan, which is a fantasy world, and my Out of Shadow book is the first book introduction to that. Then I have the High Age of the Gods, which is where most mythologies take place, and I have a book I need to write about that, which would be like the first book in that series. Then I have a Arthurian era, which is a major era in all of my stuff. And Path of the Dragon is my first book that really introduces that era. Then I have the sort of pulp / Victorian vampire hunter type era, where the book I'm writing right now on my YouTube channel is going to be the first book introducing that era. It involves Sherlock Holmes, it involves the legacy of Dracula, it involves Van Helsing, a lot of cool stuff there. That's my 4th era. And then my 5th era is the modern day, and I still haven't written a book on that yet, and that will be either my series where I have like basically a modern day Van Helsing seeking out mythical monsters and slaying them, or I have a character named Alice who's really important, and I have a series that I want to do where she is basically born, and it goes through kind of a Terminator 2 story where the parents have to hide her and keep her away from some future people that want to kill her or take her away. And those are my 5 eras. I might add a 6th because I do have a kind of future era where it's going to be basically Star Trek meets Lost in Space, which I know you're probably thinking, isn't that Voyager? It's a little like Voyager, but more of a colony ship sort of thing, but mixed with sort of Star Trek The Next Generation. So that is a future era. I probably won't start out with that, but it would be something I could add later. Once they get that, so these 5 books that introduce each major era, they get those for free if they join up. That leads them into level 1 of the continuity. I don't know what I'll price this at. For fiction, you kind of have to price things a little bit lower because you're not really selling a service like you do with something like the Nerdy Novelist and the Story Hacker community that I've built. So I don't know exactly what this be, but the continuity I've decided on is the equivalent of what you'll see often in the nonfiction space of a monthly print newsletter. So in the nonfiction world, you'll often see paid newsletters. I used to subscribe to one called Magnetic Marketing. It was $100 a month, and I had to quit it because I was doing my coaching program, which was a lot more. But that was a physical newsletter that was mailed to me in the mail, and it was a really cool thing. What I'd like to do is come up with a fiction equivalent. So something like not a full book every month delivered to your door, but something smaller that nevertheless provided some kind of cool thing. And this is where I've talked about in a previous video about how to write a book in a day. This is the kind of thing that I would be making, but I ideally would like to make it into a physical copy that I could mail to people every single month. And maybe if people didn't want to pay that much to do that, there would be a cheaper digital only option that they could do. And then inside of this, we'll have a success path. Now, in all good memberships, and you'll see this in the Nerdy Novelist as well, there is a success path, which is basically taking them from one area to another. It's very different for fiction because in fiction, there's not the same sort of transformation that you would see in, say, like a weight loss membership, right? In a weight loss membership, you're looking for transformation to lose weight. Well, it's not really the same thing in fiction, right? So the idea is that I would be trying to create this path, and I've got ideas for what that could look like. Basically, I think it would be sort of a walkthrough of my world, and it would be me doing course videos of what that looks like, maybe having some art and some slideshows and things like that, just explaining the whole eras of my world and how it all got started and everything like that. That's what I have right now. But as I get more coaching, I might choose to change that. But basically, it would just be an overview of the timeline and the world building a little bit to get people more immersed in the story. I've also had the idea that a little bonus I could do would be to go to actual locations of mythological stories. Like, for instance, there is a location that is the mythical location of the Isle of Avalon. So I could go there, film some videos, almost like travel video vlog style, and talk a little bit about the inspiration for that thing in my books, and as well as the actual history behind it. Give me an excuse to travel, and I could write off some of the travel as a tax expense, which would be an added bonus. But that was just a bonus thing. It won't necessarily be there at the beginning, but a bonus thing that I thought could be cool to include in there. I thought I could have archives of all the public domain stuff that I put together, which is something that I'm planning on putting in my membership very soon to have more information on how to use the public domain to your advantage. Same thing with my Pulp University archives. So I have a bunch of like old pulp short stories and stuff. We could have an archive for that. Get access to all my concept art. I'm thinking of having like a private wiki that would be included in here that I would set up. This is all the sort of thing you'd find in my level 1 continuity. But the main thing I'd be selling would be this monthly quote unquote newsletter that I would send out each month with some story info in it and basically like a little magazine for my world, which is made so much easier thanks to AI. Now, for a long time, that would be my entire focus. I would just be trying to build this level 1 continuity. Eventually, I could move on to the level 2 continuity, which I'm not really sure what it should be yet, but basically what I'm thinking right now is it would give you access to be a beta reader, a paid beta reader, meaning you pay me to be a beta reader. But it would be obviously a lot more than that. You'd get everything from level 1, and you'd get weekly calls with me, and you would get to have a direct say in what actually happens in my stories. I'd get your feedback. I'd talk to you about what I'm working on, what's going on, and then you would actually be able to give me feedback. And I could, if I appreciate the feedback, it could make it into the story. And then I'd probably add things like you'd get, part included in the acknowledgments and things like that at the end of each book, that sort of thing, all would be part of level 2. And I'm sure I'll think of some other things to include in here as well. But that would be the basics of a level 2 continuity. It's basically same sort of things here, but with more access to me is basically what you get. Now, I'm not sure if I will have a level 3 continuity, but if I do, I'll put it here, but I really don't know what I would put there at this point that I can't do for you at level 1 or level 2. The only other thing I put here as kind of a placeholder is if I ever do virtual or in-person events, the main focus of an event, and you go to any of the like major events out there, you'll see this sometimes. The main purpose of a big event like this is to sell you on something else, sell you on something a little more high ticket. And so if I had virtual or in-person events, part of obviously we want to provide a lot of value at that thing, but part of what I'd be doing with that at the end of it would be to try and sell everyone that's there on, say, a bulk purchase of my level 2 or level 3 continuity. And I don't have too many ideas for in-person events except for one. I think it would be awesome. This would be like a really high ticket event. I think it'd be awesome if you wanted to just like go travel around Europe with me and visit some of these mythology locations that are included with my books and that inspired my books. Go actually travel there with me and get this like premium VIP experience with the author at these cool places. And so that is something I'd like to do at some point in the future. And so that is my business plan. I hope that wasn't too overwhelming for you, but you got the basic gist of it. For starters, I'm just going to be focusing on MythBank and ads for traffic, and then I'll set up an opt-in and an upsell, and then I'll actually just start with that. And my whole goal is to make that profitable alone so that I'm not spending more in ads than I'm earning through these upsells here. But I'll also, just from the nature of how it works, I'll be building my email list through this opt-in, and that will be a great thing too. And then I'll be writing the books that are going to go into my Mifki, and then I'll launch that plus the level 1 continuity once I feel that I'm ready to actually start sending this newsletter. So that is everything that I'm going to be doing. I'm not even going to think about level 2 or level 3 continuity for a while, or the virtual or in-person events, or these other 2 websites, frankly, for starters. I will get to them, and they could be a really good source of traffic. May work on them occasionally now and then, but for starters, just working on MythBank and Facebook ads as my main sources of traffic, and then setting up this front end of the whole thing. So that is what I'm doing. Hope that was interesting to you, and I'll see you in the next video. All right, I hope you enjoyed that little piece of content from the membership site. As you might be able to tell, this is the first of a series of videos that I'm going to be doing within the membership site exclusive to the members of that group, where I basically document my process of building a fiction business. This is going to be something that you see steadily over the next couple of months, and you'll get to see my successes, my failures, any pivots that I make, any separate choices that I plan to do, and we'll just see how it goes. This will essentially be like having an entire YouTube channel and an entirely separate YouTube channel that you can follow along with, which, while related to AI in the sense that we're using all of the technologies at our disposal and certainly using AI to create a lot of the assets that I'm going to be using, it is separate because it is focusing more on the selling direct first kind of a business, which I know a lot of people are interested in and have been talking to me about. So if that interests you, be sure to check out my membership at storyhacker.ai and come and join us. I will say that this membership will be closing down at the end of November, so you won't be able to sign up for it again, and I'm not sure when I'm going to be opening it back up again, so be sure to get started today if you want to lock in that pricing at where it is currently and get all of this really fun and interesting updates for yourself. And I'll see you then.